kale. Wanoti kusamba manja pafu. Coronavirus. Ino kwa muri. Tigolonsela singwa. Coronavirus. Matenda wote. Koma tikakwirizana. Aunduna wazamu. Ukundisogosa nkulinga utamva patiko pano pakwa mulili watu kuno tena yapiga sikamba kama njale mazana kumaiko hakunja sunzika ni coronavirus ndikunena pano kuno ku Afrika pafupi konse Afrika Malawi pofika lelo tena apezeka kale ni coronavirus Malawi samala Malawi chenjela tikapusa titano se samba manja bafubi kugwiritsa ntchito soko ibewe kumakhala pomwe pali chikulu monga kumisika ni mabala tisamakhala moyandikana ochepera wanimita ngati tikumva zizindikilo tikale patoka wosainayenda aunduna waza umoyo akulengeza zakapewete ikamatendao sawa ife tikampatingo ino kwa mulili Tigolonsela singwa. Coronavirus. Matenda wote. Koma tikakwirizana. Aunduna wazamu. Marendawa amafala kutela mumakololo mumalopo ni maminga yokosa mola kisika jochinga sojo kankamwa zisakwele ibewe kupila bagamwa ibewe kupila mfuno maso nkudu tisana sambe manja ndisobo ngati kunchito mumapila ambili kuli bwino kugawana mashifti isepite dala kumalo komwe kwabuka matendawa
opila nchito ntibadalana nonsumulindi utindo muone tete budi mukutetedeza kumatendawa tisamukuta odwalanga ridilibenzo titetezela tibeweso upila maso moni wabamanja
Gomala Malawi sili jede ufuna kutanga ni matendawa Lakazi kitsango ndomeko ufuna kutetela ni matendawa Laika na bala ya ulele ya ifuzi yolowezeka Yomwe rizimba kuitana madokolo kuzatitangizira panyumba patu Amele lafa kutenta mtubi kukosomola kowilikiza Kubuma moba nigani zikine imbani foli ya ulele Kampala yake 547 Kajigenda 547 Imbaniso 547 47 Kajigenda 547 47 Dino kwa mulili Tigolonsela singwa Coronavirus Matenda wote Koma tikakwirizana Aunduna wazamu Coronavirus Dino kwa mulili Tigolonsela singwa Coronavirus Matenda wote Koma tikakwirizana Aunduna wazamu Coronavirus
Well, that's Skefa Chimoto welcoming you to yet another edition of our program. This is a series, a town hall series, where we try to steer a conversation on COVID-19. And tonight we are discussing COVID-19 and the role of the media. My name is Malik Munela. Good night. If you are joining us live, please don't forget to give us a question or a comment in the program, but you might as well click the share button so that others could join in on the program. program. And tonight in the program, I am not alone. I am privileged to have my colleagues in the profession. I have Golden Matonga, a journalist with Nation Publications. Welcome, Golden.
Thank you, Marek. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure, Golden. And also, Golden is a colleague who works at Nation Publications Limited. But we also have Winston Male. Winston Male is my former colleague. We have worked closely both as editors at Zodiac, and he's now a trainer, and he remains hands-on, and he keeps on practicing on the sidelines of training journalists. Winston, welcome to the program.
First of all, let me apologize for the poor light. It seems we have some blackouts here in the area where I am, so the light is so poor. Thanks so much for having me, Malik, and Gordon. Welcome to the program too.
Well, it's a pleasure indeed, Winston, and apologies for the blackout, but I guess we just have to get used to such kind of situations. Well, I think we just have to start the conversation. Um, you know, the issue of COVID-19, it remains an issue that has no expert, because even when we have a conversation with those that are in the medical profession, most of the things that they talk about, or things that we talk about, are things that are fairly new. Let me start with you, Golden. How has the journey been since we started having cases of COVID-19 right from the beginning?
Marek, I hope I've captured your question well. I think if you can pardon me, just repeat the last part of the question. I wasn't able to capture it very well. I think it sounded a little bit low.
Oh, my apologies, Golden. I was saying that COVID 19 is kind of a new phenomenon. Now, a lot of people, a lot of professionals, you talk of medical practitioners, you talk of epidemiologists, they seem not to know. It's like they are studying on the job to get to understand the implications, how it spreads, how it remains really a mysterious disease to this moment. Now, looking at the role of journalists, how has the experience been right from the beginning? I just want to have a feel of you being a journalist, you being a custodian of information. How has the journey been from the beginning? You being somebody with tasked with the responsibility to convey information.
Thanks very much, Marek. As you have rightly put it, I think COVID-19 has come in as a shock to the system, not globally, but also here in Malawi. There are very few governments across the world, even the most advanced nations, who can claim to have a playbook on how to fight a pandemic like COVID-19, because precisely there has never been a pandemic on the scale of COVID-19. So the options for governments, for civil society, for key stakeholders on how to react to such a pandemic are very limited. Most institutions are trying, and whatever responses light during the pandemic. These are things which we have never dealt with before, and the same applies to journalists. We have never covered anything closely resembling the pandemic. Not even the HIV crisis in the early 90s could resemble the impact of COVID-19. The effects of COVID-19 have been registered almost in every sphere of life, talking about the economy, talking about how people commute, talking about how people relate to one another, how we travel, who we meet, how we greet each other. Every sphere of life has been affected by COVID-19. So it's been very challenging for journalists to work in such an environment. First, everyone has to take care of their own health concerns.
It's a pandemic that is not choosing a profession. It's not a pandemic which is discriminating against any status or economic, be it economic, social, or political. So it's been a very hard time for journalists to cover it. One, because as journalists, we thrive on meeting people. Our job, everyday life. I think the first thing on our job description is basically to talk to people. So cultivating sources, be able to tell people their stories has been very particularly tough for journalists because going out means risking your life. Going out means trying to talk to people who are supposed to isolate and restrict their movements. So far it has been very tough for journalists as much as it has been tough for governments and heavy personnel, for example, to cope with the scale of the disease, the scale of the death, the scale of the grief that we have seen like we have never witnessed before.
Thank you very much for that detailed explanation, Golden. It really captures the subject matter really well. And Winston, picking from where Golden left, how do you think the media now? I'm trying to fast forward. I know Golden has done the background quite well, but before we tackle the middle part of the story, I would want you to give a context analysis of the entire situation in terms of how do you think the media has taken its role right from the beginning. And whilst you are at it, you being a journalist trainer, I would want you to also put it in the context of the role of journalists so that we begin to shape the conversation tonight. How do you think the media has taken its role based on the fact that we are operating with little information, we are operating from a point of ignorance, and working with information as it emerges? Winston.
Okay, thanks so much. Like you put it, I think Gordon is like sort of unpacked everything. Okay, he has captured everything from the beginning up to now. This is a disease that has really um, um, disturbed the world, and it has left almost everyone perplexed, bamboozled. Okay, now to answer your question, I think I would do slightly move to the issue for where a situation where we've seen journalists working hard to fight against the misinformation and disinformation. Okay, so this has been a very serious issue because the disease has been bombarded with a lot of misinformation and disinformation. Every day, people are putting, especially on social media, are putting what is deemed to be misinformation and disinformation. And probably this is coming from the background that um, Gordon highlighted, because this is a new disease. It's a disease that is taking new twists and turns almost every day. So one of the areas that the journalists have really been working hard and struggling to catch up is the issue for fighting misinformation and disinformation. For example, we've seen people posting what are deemed to be remedies, and then people have been also posting what could be deemed to be the right way of fighting this pandemic. So it has really been hard in that front, i.e., the fight against misinformation and disinformation. Now, the other thing that I've also seen is that authorities who are expected to be in the forefront of giving a journalist this information are also like they're also how can I put it? They're also like learning new things almost every day. Okay, I'll give some examples. For example, the other time we hear authorities in the United States, for example, saying, well, maybe a single mask is enough. Okay, and then maybe 1 or 2 days later, you hear the same authorities changing, saying, well, I think this time around, what we should be doing is to be wearing a pair of masks, maybe one or two. And then looking at the WHO, for example, which is the authority as far as health in the world is concerned, they've also been struggling to give out information to the general public, especially to the journalists, because we as journalists, we rely on authorities to get the right information and then put it across to the general public in form of stories. But because the authorities are also struggling, the authorities are also like kind of learning new things as far as the disease is concerned. So as journalists, we are also sort of are struggling as well, because we rely on the authorities to give us information, but then when the same authorities sort of they are not sure of what to say, maybe they say one thing today and then the other day they say another thing, so it becomes sort of hard. The other thing is that I've seen is journalists have really been overwhelmed with this disease. Most of the times, we tend to neglect to report um, on serious matters to do with this disease. For example, the implications that we've seen recently, where some sectors of society have been shunning going to the hospital to maybe to seek medical help. Maybe they have other medical challenges, like maybe they are diabetic also, or they have other diseases. But we've seen that such groups of people have been shunning to go to the hospital to seek medical help. But what we've seen is it's like journalists are just concentrating on the numbers that are being announced on a daily basis. Like, for example, in Malawi, journalists are concentrating on how many people have been diagnosed with the COVID-19 today. They just report that. I think we should do more. We should also look at other areas of life of how this particular disease has affected us. Like in this case, where we're witnessing a situation where some patients are shunning, they don't want to go to the hospital, apparently because they fear of contracting the disease. We should dig more and find out, for example, what's the extent of the problem, and what are authorities doing about it. So really, in short, there's just a lot that as journalists we can do. I guess this is just the beginning. We're yet to see more.
Thank you very much, Winston, for that clarification. It really marries well with what Golden had said earlier on. Golden, you had conceded that not only are journalists facing challenges, but the overall the globe at large is facing challenges, and cross-cutting professions are facing challenges when it comes to issues to do with COVID. But here is Winston pinpointing certain areas where there have been weaknesses. Now, let us look at the role of the media. Golden, what is the role of the media in the wake of the pandemic? The real theme for tonight. What is the role of the media, and has the Malawi media been able to embrace that role and raise to the occasion?
All right, I think the media traditionally has a number of roles to play in society. One, to inform people, to educate people, and sometimes we say entertain people as well. But one of the key roles of the media, which often comes out, is as the law or as a watchdog. So, in terms of COVID-19, if you look at these stated laws, the law to inform people, the media every day we have seen live broadcasts, we have seen updates on digital platforms, social media platforms, in newspapers as well, updating the nation on steps which government is taking in our case to combat the pandemic. How many people have died? We have seen the media discussing ways to prevent COVID-19, telling people how it spreads. So from that particular end, the media has done its part, ensuring that it has fulfilled its duty to the public, to make sure that the public knows how it can prevent itself. From the perspective of a watchdog, we have also seen the media asking difficult questions to government, to and other key stakeholders. For example, issue of COVID-19 funds. From outset, since a pandemic broke out, the media has been very vigilant, asking difficult questions to government on how they are spending government funds which were allocated to various clusters, various departments to fight the pandemic. From outset, we saw the media reporting on the government using most of the money for allowances. If you may recall, some of us in the press, when the pandemic started, we reported about ministers using COVID-19 funds, for example, to do inspections. That was last year. And you may recall there was a leaked video and audio footage, video footage and audio recordings of ministers, two ministers during the Peter Mutharika administration, who were recorded discussing about how government was using COVID-19 funds. So the media, in a nutshell, has been very vigilant, making sure that it's asking authorities on what they are doing to make sure that the public is being protected. We have also seen the media reporting about this situation in the various hospitals. The fact that hospitals are struggling to get most of the supplies which they need. We have seen that continuously being reported by the media. We have seen commentaries, we have seen stories about it, we have seen people talking to patients. All those stories have been published by the media, and recently we have started seeing investigative stories by journalists exposing how is actually officials in government are squandering money which was supposed to save lives. So from that perspective, I think the media is doing its job. Is it enough? Maybe not. Maybe we can do more. But I think we can pat ourselves on the back to say we're trying our best. But perhaps maybe we can do more.
There is room for doing more, as Winston had earlier indicated. Now, before I come back to you, Golden, because I have been following you personally, and I've noted that you have been doing a lot of investigative journalism with your colleague Suzu Chitete, whom we were talking with a short while ago, but he couldn't make it. But then, essentially, you have been doing a phenomenal job. Winston, looking at it broadly, you had earlier indicated that there is room for improvement, to which Golden has agreed. Now, based on the capacity of the media, now I would want us to be realistic, because we might be expecting a lot on a media that is under-equipped for the circumstances that we find ourselves in. How could you say the media landscape has been affected in terms of operations? Winston.
Okay, I think this is a very pertinent question. We've been saying throughout this particular program that this pandemic has sort of caught us unawares, okay? And the information that is coming around, that is flooding, is just so much. So much so that sometimes as journalists, as the media, we tend to sort of get overwhelmed and then lose focus. Probably one area where I think as journalists we are sort of lacking capacity is the area of maybe having time to analyze the vaccines that will be coming. Okay, we've up to now we've probably more than 5 different types of vaccines. So I feel that as journalists in Malawi, we haven't had enough time to sit down and then maybe analyze all these types of vaccines, and then see which one could be appropriate for for us as a country. We have been reporting that, well, Malawi will be receiving vaccines, but I don't think we've had enough time to sit down and analyze the various types of vaccines, the pros and cons. Okay. Another thing that I think as the media we need to do is to find out why really is it that the rural communities seem not to be shaken by this disease. I can tell you, Malik and Gordon, that if you go into the rural settings of Malawi, rural areas of Malawi, it appears like it's another world. Okay, they don't put on face mask, they don't recognize social distancing. Okay, it's like they are not just aware about. I mean, they don't care about COVID-19. Actually, in some cases, they say that COVID-19 is for the rich, is for the people in towns. So I wish, as the media, we should dig more, find out where did we go wrong? Where did the government messaging mechanism go wrong? So to the extent that people in the rural areas feel that COVID-19 is not for them, they are not affected. So this is also one of the areas that I feel right now as the media in Malawi, we need to dig more and find out what's going on, because believe you me, if our rural folks, okay, people in rural areas are not concerned, they are not observing these measures that most people in towns are observing, then we are in for it, because it means this pandemic might continue to spread in rural areas and then bounce back to the trading centers, to the towns, after maybe we've relaxed, thinking that things are getting better. Yeah. So basically, those are the two areas that I wish, as the media, we could have done better. One, analyzing the various vaccines on the market out there to see which one would be appropriate for us, and then also to find out why the rural folks seem not to be concerned with the messages with COVID-19. Where did we go wrong as a country?
I may corroborate your statement, Winston, in as far as the lifestyle in rural areas where really life seems to be very, very normal. Golden, perhaps let me bring you into the conversation. You being in the front line in as far as media is concerned, do you think the media has done justice to those that are living in the rural areas? Golden.
Thank you very much for the question, Malik. But I wanted to come in earlier to the question you asked Winston before I respond to the question you have particularly addressed to me. The question, I think you wanted to know as well how much it has affected the media fraternity, especially its operations. So I think one thing which we should highlight here is that we have lost journalists as well during the pandemic. So it's very important when you are discussing how it has affected journalists to also recall that the media has lost some of the most experienced journalists during the pandemic. Some of the most promising journalists, some of the most talented, have been lost to the pandemic. So the media has not only been affected in terms of not being able to easily meet and interact with sources as it was in the past, but also because of all its own lungs which have been lost through the pandemic. Now, to come to your question on what can be done to ensure that the gap which is there on how people in the rural areas are receiving COVID-19 issues, I think there are long-term and short-term answers to this dilemma. The long-term issues include more education, because it's also about the issues of literacy sometimes. The more people are educated, the more they will easily understand issues of health. Right now, it's very difficult to confront somebody who believes in so many superstitions to believe uh, about believe things about science. So the more we educate people, the more they will easily understand things of vaccines. The more they will understand things of pandemics like COVID-19. For somebody who knows, for example, that there was SARS in the 2000 in Asia, and Europe or in the United States, they will easily understand that COVID-19 is like any other disease. But for somebody who has never heard anything like this, they can easily relate it to anything they want. In Malawi, people can stone a vehicle belonging to an education advisor or a motorcycle because they think it's somebody is a bloodsucker or some other mysterious visitor to their villages. So the more we confront the vicious cycle of poverty and illiteracy, the more easy it will be for people in rural areas to be able to receive warmly important messaging on issues like the pandemic. That's for the long term. For the short term, I think it's very important that media houses continue to address the masses in language which they can understand. It means programming in the vernacular, programming in a manner that people can easily join the conversation. Unlike this conversation which we're having at the moment, which is for a certain audience, which can easily comprehend certain issues which we are discussing. But there will be a time there is a need for the media to break down the issues in the layman language, and there's need to find champions, models in the villages who can easily persuade others to believe the right messaging. It's been unfortunate to watch health workers being stoned, being beaten up in communities, rural communities, because somebody out there started fake stories that these people are pocketing money whenever they are delivering a dead body. So their motivation is to get money whenever they declare that somebody has died of COVID-19 or not. So the more we confront these issues, the more we are going to stop the spread of fake news. Fake news is easily controlled when people confront the truth. So the more we put out the right message, the more uh, we limit the impact of fake news. So I think that to me that is what we can work in the long term and short term.
Sorry, Winston. I just realized that you might have missed part of my question because I was off mic. I was talking about the tension between teachers and journalists. There seem to have been tension between the two parties recently. How do you think this challenge could be resolved? But before you give a solution, I would want you to give a background to what might have been the main cause for the seeming tension that emerged between teachers and journalists, especially on the issues to do with risk allowance.
Okay, thanks so much. Can you hear me? Malik, can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear, Winston.
Okay, fine. Thanks so much. Yeah, I think the background to the whole misunderstanding between the media and journalists as far as risk allowances is concerned started way back, even during the DPP regime, where apparently two media houses, will not mention them, apparently they they said that probably teachers are not in the group or should not be in the group of people to receive risk allowances because they don't come into direct contact with patients. Okay, but then on the other hand, teachers have been saying that because they handle large groups of people, we are talking about students. Now, these students come from different backgrounds, different homes. So they feel that because these students come from different homes, they meet different people, they're in a large group, they are probably also at risk. So this issue has been going on and on and on, and actually it culminated just recently into some sit-in uh, teachers. Uh, Actually downing tools to try to force the government to consider them, or to ensure that maybe they are also provided with the risk allowances. Now, to answer your question as to how these two groups of people, i.e., the journalists and the teachers, would maybe reach a compromise, I would suggest maybe that there should be some talks, okay? Because normally, uh, a bit, when two arguments are advanced, probably both parties could be right, only that maybe the other party doesn't understand why the other party also is making those arguments. So I wish there could be some kind of talk, so to say. They meet and try to talk to each other to find out really where the misunderstanding between the two parties are. Because I personally feel that both groups could be right, okay? The journalists could be right, the teachers too could be right, but then these two parties need to meet to have a conversation and then agree um, on what really could be done. Otherwise, if each party could be justice, making their argument somewhere else, and then the journalists again saying their own things without meeting these teachers, I think this problem would continue.
Well, the problem would continue without bringing each of the parties to the discussion table. Quite some insights there. Then, Golden, what other tensions have been happening in the profession between what other conflicts or challenges that journalists have been facing on the ground?
As I alluded to earlier on, I think the biggest challenge has been to be able to operate safely in this challenging environment. There has been a couple of instances where media houses have had to fight with the government for information. We still struggle to access most of the information that we ask government to release. Uh, let's say the government passed the access to information law, but as you may recall, it is still yet to be operationalized. So we still do struggle with specific offices to give us very important information, especially about expenditure. It's easier to ask Minister of Health to give you information about the vaccines. It's easier to ask to tell you how many people have died and stuff. But it's very difficult for them to tell you how much we have spent uh, since the pandemic started and what we have spent it on. That's the question which we would like to be answered often, because we have a previous in this country, and the previous is that each time there is a crisis, the crisis is utilized to abuse public resources. So, as watchdogs of a society, we sometimes do ask these difficult questions on behalf of the population, so that we see that there is the transparency and accountability. Unfortunately, that's not the case oftentimes. So some of the conflicts which you are increasingly seeing on the ground as we operate during the pandemic is is that kind of friction with authorities on what kind of information can be released and when can it be released. The Vetos administration came in on the premise that it was going to operate on very transparent ground, but so far it has been tested through the COVID pandemic, and we have seen that increasingly, while at the top, the president has been very willing to address the public as often as possible and respond to the public expectations, public concerns on various issues. At the bottom, especially among controlling officers, we have seen officers struggling to respond to requests in time. Most of the people have been evasive. Most of the people in government have been very evasive with inquiries on expenditure of huge resources which we have been given during this pandemic. As I alluded to, we have a previous in this country. Cashgate was born out of the need to acquire certain things in government in a matter of emergency. Mezgate was born out of the need to get maize in the country as a matter of urgency. Each time there is a crisis, shortcuts appear to prevail in government, and at the end of the day, it's the taxpayer who pays dearly. So part of the friction which we are seeing is not only about between journalists and the public office holders. We are increasingly seeing agitation by the citizens themselves. If you just look at the timelines on Facebook of people, you will see that people are getting agitated over how public officials have handled public money. So these conflicts are going to continue if Malawians don't get convinced by the responses we are getting from public office holders. We have seen the president taking steps which most Malawians called for. For example, the forensic audit and forensic investigations, criminal investigations, which the president has ordered. The governance agencies, like police and the Anti-Corruption Bureau, to immediately launch. So maybe that might avert some of the conflicts which could have come out. But we have increasingly seen civil society using very strong language in their assessment of government. So it depends on how government responds to these symptoms of frustrations by the public. That will define how the country moves forward from this current crisis.
Golden, you worked on this story, the story that I just shown on the screen there. So, 700 million Dodma COVID feast. This is one piece of fine journalism that we have seen since COVID arrived on our shows. I know you worked with Susan Chitete on this story, but then let me bring in Winston Male to give. I know obviously Winston has been reading this story or has read the story, and I would want him to give us his opinion or his overview on the story. Winston, what is your take on this a piece of fine journalism. That's how I call it. A piece of fine journalism by Golden Matonga and colleague Suzu Chitete. What is your take? You might think otherwise. You might think contrary to what I'm thinking. What is it that you think, Winston? Your own personal verdict on the story. 780 million kwacha Dodma COVID-19 feast. Winston.
Well, Malik, to be honest, this is the saddest moment in which we are as a country. You see, we are in a situation where we have a pandemic, and then we're also witnessing Christmas feasting, as Gordon and Chitete have put it. This is really, really, really sad. We normally in such kind of a situation, such a dilemma, would have expected all of us, including the government officials, uniting to fight against the pandemic. But what we have seen here, as Gordon has rightly put it, what we are seeing here is a situation where people, especially those charged with the responsibility of looking at the activities to do with the COVID-19 in the country, are actually taking advantage of this and then sharing the money. Okay, there was an incident, for example, people met at Linde Motel in Mponeladoa. Okay, they had a 2-hour meeting, a purported meeting, and then they shared. Each one of them went away allegedly with about 4 million kwacha. Okay, now this is very sad. Now talking about whether this is a one of the finest journalism piece or not, well, I've already always regarded Gordon as one of those people who truly write fine journalism. Journalism should be not what I would call the minister said kind of thing. Okay, real journalism should be the kind of journalism that people, by the end of the day, will learn the truth. Okay, so here we are. Um, um, this piece is piecing together what has been going around so that everybody understands what has really been taking place. Now, this piece also. Oh,
I understand that Winston had highlighted that he's having power issues. So I strongly suspect that his laptop might have died out on him. Nonetheless, Golden, Winston had been showering compliments upon you and your colleague Chitete. Now, take us through the story that we see, Golden. The story that we see. Take us through what has been the experience like where you work on a story that establishes that 980 million kwacha was feasted upon?
So thank you very much for the kind words you have shared. But I mean, what is important to us as journalists when we do publish these stories is that we should see some action. Oftentimes, there's fatigue among the decision makers to do anything about the country, anything about the stories which are published on a daily routine. Oftentimes, there's fatigue by the general public. We do get these kind of stories very often, but what to do next oftentimes is something which is a missing part of the puzzle. One would expect that when such stories do reach the public, there will be some repercussions. We do hope that there will be repercussions after this, the stories which we are publishing. We do hope that there will be repercussions when the forensic audit results are out. Because I think for a country to really move forward, we should start rewarding good work by public servants, good work by the citizen, good work by government, and we should start punishing with very serious penalties bad work, corruption, negligence, and abuse of office. Oftentimes, when we highlight these issues, it takes too long to punish those who are guilty. You can look at Cashgate as one key example. Some of those who were participating in the looting of government funds, billions of them, now more than 9 years ago, are still on trial up to today. Some have never even gone on trial. So it's frustrating for sometimes for people in the governance sector, journalists, sometimes even auditors, sometimes even investigators, when there's no product of their labor at the end of the day. So we do hope that perhaps after this kind of stories are out, the relevant authorities, relevant agencies will be taking these issues up and investigating them further and bringing to book those who are found to have done something contrary to the law. So for us as journalists, we are motivated to continue writing these kind of stories. We will never stop writing these kind of stories. But we do hope that what can change, what we hope should change, is the reaction which comes after these stories have been published. We would love to see justice taking the full of the law, because I think that's what investigative journalism is all about. It's all about making sure that those who are responsible for certain actions, they answer for their actions. So we will continue highlighting these issues, and we hope that the public and the rest of stakeholders will continue supporting journalism, but also be able to ensure that those who are exposed to have done something fishy, something wrong, face the full arm of the law.
Yeah, it's quite clear, Golden, that results must be shown. Winston, welcome back. I can imagine that the power issues had worsened. Welcome back, nonetheless, Winston. Well, it appears that Winston is with us, but not yet with us. So, Golden, let's continue the conversation. The kind of stories that we've been seeing, the quality stories that really expose the kind of stench that we are in. You really rightly put it that you expect results in terms of implications and consequences. There seem to be public perception that on the part of government, not enough is being done, especially on issues to do with accountability. You also touched on the need for government to really work with speed on matters to do with access to information. Now, I want you to explain the issue of access to information with regards to COVID-19 investigations that are ongoing. Do you think, as journalists, enough is being done by the government in a quest to be as transparent as possible?
The answer to that is yes and no. At the very top of government, there's been some movement towards ensuring that government is accountable to the population, that is transparent. We have seen the weekly addresses by the president. Unfortunately, journalists have not had chance to ask the president any questions directly since the last media briefing with the senior media managers, which was held last year. Part of the problem is that the pandemic has limited the chances of direct interaction with the president. Part of it is that our president is synonymous with not availing themselves to the media. We were hoping that that sad chapter was going to be coming to an end with this administration, and indeed, they started well. So, to a large extent, I think at that particular level, they have done a little bit better in terms of trying to be transparent, but they can only do so much. Most of the questions which needs to be answered in terms of the pandemic is especially about how government money has been spent is supposed to be answered by various controlling officers in various departments, ministries, principal secretaries, and various spokespersons. Unfortunately, it's a sub-chapter because these are the ones who have failed the country in terms of ensuring that we have an accountable government. We have, unfortunately, the whole office of president and cabinet, which doesn't seem to be as proactive as well, which seems as well to be running away from the press. So journalists are being left with with limited opportunities when it comes to getting information which is relevant. The official government spokesperson can only answer so much. They normally do not have a direct information which journalists do want uh, when they are doing their stories. So access to information law is there, but the culture of secrecy which has prevailed in government for a long time seems not to be going anywhere despite change of governments, despite commitments made by the head of state. So we still have a long way to go before we start seeing uh, the fruits of enacting access to information law. By the way, even without the utilization of the access to information framework, the Constitution of Malawi is very clear that the public is entitled to information by jury bearers. The whole constitutional architecture is formulated in a way that Malawians should be able to easily access information from their duty bearers. The law states very clearly that public officers hold office on trust. What it means is that they do hold that office on behalf of the voters, on behalf of the citizenry. So if anybody holds an office on trust, it means right away that they are responsible and answerable to those who are supposed to be the primary holders of that office, which are the people of Malawi. So somebody who's holding an office on our behalf should be answerable to us. On top of that, we pay taxes, which sponsors, which finances operations of government. So that gives us stake in the game. We have stake in the game because those offices are held using our money. So there still remains a culture of people who have stayed in government for quite a long time, and they believe that the ways of doing things, the old ways of doing things, are the only ways how government should operate.
Staying long in government and the establishment of bad culture being mentioned also by the president himself when he ordered the vice president to constitute a special task force that will be looking at uh, certain things as they happen in government. Do you finally, Golden, do you see some of the reforms that are being taken as a result of things that are emerging, the debt that is emerging with whatever is happening? Do you really think that these are taking effect out of sincerity, or government is only trying to be seen to be doing something so that it soothes the anger of Malawians?
I've no doubt that government, when you talk about government, I mean the current leadership has the political will to change the way this country is governed. What I doubt is whether the system, the endemic challenges which are there are indeed going to be tackled. But my skepticism apart, I do know that countries all over the world have transformed when light presidents have come to power. So I think the jury is still out on whether this administration is going to fulfill the promises which it made. But with determination, if we can put the right structures in place. If we put the right people in place, not only at the top but also in various departments, I think maybe we can start moving towards the right track. Everybody talks about Rwanda, but Rwanda is not a miracle. Rwanda is a product of visionary leadership matching its vision with the action. We need the world to start talking about our country. We need to fight endemic corruption, a lot of wastage, which for years has denied Malawians light opportunities and a decent future. We owe it to our children to do that.
Well, Golden, I must admit this has been a wonderful chat, and I was just having a conversation on WhatsApp with Winston, and I was really extending my appreciation to him for having joined us. Let me also extend my appreciation to you for being available at short notice and being such an insightful person, talking about the role of journalism uh, during the time of COVID. You have indeed shared a lot of insights, inside information on how journalists are operating and the sort of challenges that journalists are experiencing, as well as the frustrations and kudos that you have to extend to the leadership of the country, which is something that I believe is part of uh, building and shaping the proper narrative as we fight COVID-19. So, Golden, let me give you the opportunity now to say, what do you think um, journalists are going to be doing in order to right the wrongs that are being noted along the way and make sure that their resilience is really felt when it comes to the fight against this COVID-19? Your final words.
I think I would like first and foremost to thank millions of journalists across the world who are risking their lives to go out there and tell stories during the pandemic. I think oftentimes people don't appreciate enough how much journalists sacrifice to tell these stories. So I really salute my colleagues in the profession who are working hard night and day to make sure that we are telling these important stories from various perspectives and various angles. I believe that the story of the pandemic is going to be with us for quite a long time. It's not going away anytime soon. Hopefully, it goes sooner. But I think it's very important that as journalists we keep true to our values, the traditional values, which cannot change because of a pandemic. If anything else, I think the call for us to be more responsible in our business is only enhanced by the pandemic. The need for us to be more ethical, to be more rigorous, has never been greater, because I think what is at stake here is not only the well-being of the country, but perhaps even lives and millions of them for that matter. So it's a very important story for us to tell, but a story which we must tell the right way.
Well, once again, Golden, I truly appreciate your presence in the program, and I believe that this one is just one of many more programs to come on iHub Online. And I wish you a lovely evening. And I would also want to extend sincere thanks all those that were watching tonight. I must extend sincere apologies for having failed to give prior notice for this program. This was due to our work schedule. I'm actually traveling, and it had to be a last minute kind of thing. And I really appreciate Golden and Winston for coming to our rescue so that we could have the program as intended. As I leave you with a song done by Skefa Chimoto, and this is Coronavirus. Thank you. and good night.
Moni wapa manja nibiri ya kale. Wano tikusamba manja pafu pafu. Coronavirus, coronavirus, coronavirus. Ino kwa muridi. Coronavirus. Zigolonsela zingwa. Coronavirus. Matenda wote. Komatika kwirizana. Aunduna wasamu. Ugundisogosa nkulinga utamba patiko pano papa mulili watu kuno tenda yapiga sinkamba kama jale mazana kumaiko hakunja sunziga ni coronavirus ndikunena pano kuno ku Afrika pafupi konse Afrika Malawi pofika lelo ena bezeka kale ni coronavirus Malawi samala Malawi jenjela tigapusa titano se Samba manja bafubi kugwiritsa ntchito soko ibewe kumakhala pomwe pali chikulu monga kumisiga ndi mabala tisamakhala moyandikana ochepera wanimita ngati tikumva zizindikiro tikhale patoka wosayendayenda aunduna wa zaumoyo akulengeza zakapewedwe ikamatenda sawa ife tikampa tingo ino kwakwa mulidi Zigolonsela zingwa. Coronavirus. Matenda wote. Komatika kwirizana. Aunduna wasamu. Coronavirus. Wone baba manjangile. Marendawa amafala. Kutela mumakololo mumalopo ndi maminda. Yokosa mola kisika jochinga. Sojo kankamwa zisakwele. Ibewe kupila bagamwa. Ibewe kupila mfuno maso mkudu tisana sambe manja ndisobo ngati kunchito mumapila ambiri kuli bwino kugawana mashifti isepite dala kumalo pomwe kwabumba matendawe
Opila nchito ntibatalana nonsamuli ndi utindo muone tete budi mukutiteteza kumatendawa tisamukuta ralanga ririlibe nzotitetezela tibewe sokupila maso moni wabamanja
Gomala Malawi sili jede ufuna kutanga ni madena wa Lakazi kitsango lomego ufuna kutetela ni madena wa Laika na bala ya ulele ya ifumi yolowezeka Yomwelizi imba kuitana madokolo kuzadi tangizila panyumba patu Kamele lava